Okay, how's everybody doing today? You're watching Slot Car Mayhem. I'm John, and this will be episode 29 of the Glendale 65. First off, I'd like to take a minute, wish everybody a very happy Father's Day. It's been a good day here so far. The weather's a little crappy, but really, I don't care. It's Sunday, I'm relaxed, I'm getting to spend time with some of you fine folks, and that makes my day. So, very good. Second off, I would like to apologize for my absence in the last couple months. I've had a tremendous load going on at work. I've had a couple people out, one person out on short-term disability for the last couple months, and so I've had to pick up that additional workload myself, and it's kept me going a good number of hours a day, let's say, and it's pretty much worn me out, but a lot of that's winding down. I've got somebody coming back to the office here next week. My outdoor work that I've had to deal with for the spring is pretty much complete, and that leaves me more time to spend here taking care of some of this. So hopefully we'll be back on a more of a regular schedule for our uploads, and we can continue where we left off. Okay, the reason for this video is I've experienced several problems throughout the life of this track, and I want to go through some of those. The main problem cropped up if we refer back to episode 7 of the updates for the Smart Race app. It started at Smart Race version 5.0.1, and I believe that's right. Yeah, 5.0.1. And what would happen, that by chance happens to be the version of Smart Race where you can run multiple ghost cars. And when I started using that version, what would happen is, out of the blue, let's say I was running on controller number 1 and I had a ghost car, a single ghost car. I would be running, well, all of a sudden, in the middle of the race, controller number 3 would just show up. It wouldn't continue to count laps, and eventually it would retire itself out the way you would expect it to do so, but it remained on the screen. And sometimes I would have 1, 2, sometimes even 3 of these unassigned controllers pop up throughout the course of a race. So my first initial thought, I will say, was it was something to do with the Smart Race app, and I thought that for about 8 seconds. And I said to myself, I said, no, Mark usually puts out a really solid product, and I don't think that's the situation. However, when I started thinking about how this would work running multiple ghost cars, I said something in the sensing system itself, or something in the way the software works with it, has changed, and that's highlighting another problem. So I started doing some testing trying to figure out what was going on, and I realized that some cars tend to do it and some cars do not quite so much. And so I started swapping electronics back and forth, trying to isolate the problem. Now, while I was doing my investigating, my whole focus was to try to identify the root cause. Developing a solution to cover up a problem itself is a lot easier sometimes than finding the root cause. And me being me, I'm a very analytical person. I want to know what's going on and why it's doing it, and see if we can address the root cause of the problem and take care of that. So instead of just trying to slap something together to make it work, I decided I wanted to go ahead and identify root cause. So I did quite a bit of experimentation with a specific group of cars, and I would find that some cars would tend to generate these extra controllers more than others. So I swapped electronic packages from one car to another, and I found that that would follow suit. I said, okay, it's something in the car electronics. And I said, now, wait a minute, let's think about it. And I said, really, it's a large enough percentage of my fleet that I don't think that's the problem. It wouldn't make sense to have, roughly half your cars doing something that the other half doesn't. And I couldn't get my head wrapped around why certain cars would do it and certain cars wouldn't. I started looking at motor capacitors, things like that. And I said, no, normal variance, everything seems to be in line. I don't think that's the issue. So I went through again, and I noticed that if I clean the brushes or the braids, pickup braids, really, really good for all the cars prior to starting, it would delay the occurrence of this. So I said, okay. So I did a further battery series of tests. I turned off all the room lights, and I ran the cars, and I had a series of cameras set up around, and I noticed that this tended to happen when things would start arcing. Eventually, if you tweak your brushes and you've got everything, even if you put a brand new set of braids on the car and you're running it, after X number of laps, the brushes are going to start wearing in and getting a little wonky, as they normally do just from normal running. And at that point, you may start getting some arcing. The arcing seemed to be the trigger. And when things would start arcing, that's when these extra laps would start showing up. So I said, okay. So then I did a little bit more thinking, and I said, okay, now how is it working to where the system is actually picking that up? And it dawned on me. I said, I wonder if this has something to do with me remotely mounting the control unit. So I went back and I looked at the wiring that I did, and sure enough, if you look at the way I have my control unit wired, I have two wires, a black and red, coming out for track power, and I have two pairs of yellow and blue that go to the optical sensors at the start finish line. And these were all bundled up in the same conduit, and I said, I wonder. So my guess was what's happening is when the cars begin to start arcing, that pulse is induced into the sensor wiring, thus triggering an additional controller that's not attached to anything. So I went ahead and I broke open the harness, and I physically separated out the red and black wire from the blue and yellow pairs, and physically separated them by a few inches, and I ran them in completely different paths. And there's a couple areas where they cross, and when they crossed, I made sure they crossed perpendicular, not parallel. And what I did is I avoided close proximity parallel runs between the track power and the sensor leads. And I went ahead and I did another series of tests after I accomplished that with the same batch of cars, this time with minimal car maintenance, and just like you would normal. And I ran a full series of tests, and what the tests comprise of actually is I ran 6 10-minute races, I ran 5 12s, I ran 4 15s, I ran 4 30s, and I ran 2 one-hour tests, and that adds up to about 7 hours of testing. And throughout that entire batch of testing, as well as any additional subsequent runs I've had since, I have had 0 occurrences of an additional controller showing up while I'm doing my racing. Very good. I think I've identified root cause, and I was able to come up with a solution. That being said, interesting enough, if you remember previously, I had an issue where the safety car or pace car would creep in its safety car or the pit lane, and if it crept enough throughout a race, it would work its way out and just automatically start running the track until it parked itself again. And I did have a solution to fix that problem in mind. However, I wanted to identify root cause. Well, since I did the little fix for the controller issue, I have had 0 occurrences of the safety car creeping. Very good. So, and I thought to myself, now wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. A lot more people are having issues with the safety car creeping, and most of them don't have the control unit remote mounted, so what's going on? So I went back to episode 14 of the Glendale 65, where I remote mounted the control unit, and I'll show you a snapshot of the video, and I'll go ahead and post that up there. And you can see that right here we have a close proximity parallel run between the blue and yellow, which are the sensor wires, and the red and black, which is the track power. And I suspect that if you go inside your stock control unit, and if you physically move these wires out of the way and avoid the parallel close proximity situation that we see here with the factory wiring, that will probably eliminate the pace car creep issue on a stock control unit. So I'm going to do a little bit more experimenting with that. Now we'll probably write Carrera and let them know my findings on that, but I believe this is the scenario. Noise is being induced into the sensor leads and they're being picked up. That being said, that seemed to be really pretty apparent because before I found this issue with the pace car creeping, I could have a pace car there and I could have a pace car here, and when they would creep, they would both creep at the same time. They would both do exactly the same thing at the same time. And that was telling me that was something coming from the control unit or somewhere else. It had nothing to do with the pit lane. It had nothing to do with anything else other than the fact that noise was getting in there and creating a false trigger. So that'll wrap this up. I want to make sure that if you want to make sure that you're going to clear this issue, and if you have a remote mounted control unit, do yourself a favor and make sure that your leads for the optical sensors are separated physically from the track power leads. And if they do have to cross each other, make sure they cross relatively perpendicular and not parallel runs that are right next to each other, and you'll avoid a lot of this issue right here. I went one step further that I don't think is necessary, but when I separated out my wiring, I also twisted the pairs, and just like this here, and a twisted pair of wiring will have a higher degree of noise immunity than non-twisted. However, I don't believe this is necessary. I believe simply separating them out physically will give you the results you're looking for. So I'm glad we were able to identify root cause. And for me, root cause is extremely important. A friend of the family works part-time as at the school cafeteria for an elementary school. And she was telling me about a problem they had a while ago where they had some of the kids, a handful of kids, were acting rather inappropriately, as kids will. They were acting quite inappropriately with bananas that were provided in the lunchroom. And I'll let you use your imagination, okay? And the school addressed this situation in a way I don't necessarily agree with. They said, okay, that's it. And they just pulled the bananas out of the lunchroom. Said, that's it, no more bananas. I thought to myself, well, that doesn't solve the problem one bit. These kids don't know what they did, what they did wrong. And the majority of the kids, all they know is they can't get a banana that they want anymore for lunch. And, they didn't fix anything. They just eliminated the problem. But they left the underlying problem unresolved. And I did not want to approach this simply by taking away the banana. Same thing with the pace car creep. I did have a solution in mind, and the solution in mind was to use either an Arduino or a pace car Carrera chip that would activate a relay to supply power to that section of the pit lane, allowing the car to come out, and then when you recalled it, it would just make that section of track dead again, allow the car to park, and the result would be you'd have a pace car with no power and no lights as it was parked. And that's fine, that would solve the problem completely 100%. However, I didn't want to take away the banana by fixing a problem or creating a solution without fixing the actual problem. Here, now I'm glad I've been very patient. I know I've had a lot of people asking about that, but I've been very, very patient and doing a lot of testing. And I'm pretty confident to say right now that by doing the physical separation of the sensor leads away from the power leads of the track, that's completely eliminated the ghost car creep. So I'm very happy with the results that have come out overall, and I wanted to share this with you. And especially if you have a remote mounted control unit, you can do the same thing. If you have a stock unit and you have issues where the pace car is creeping in the pit lane, open it up. Go ahead and open it up and move the blue and yellow wires away from the red and black. Make sure they cross perpendicular, not parallel, and make sure, and if that doesn't fix the problem, please let me know. But from my experience here, that's completely eliminated the issue. So, okay, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna wrap this episode up. I'm gonna keep it short. I want everybody to have a really good day, stay safe. A very happy Father's Day to all the dads and stepdads and pet dads and everything else out there. So just enjoy yourself, relax, enjoy the video. Thanks for watching as always, I appreciate it. Keep yourself safe, and we'll see you soon.